Hello students, I'm Himani Sharma, your UGC NET educator. In this new YouTube video, we are going to move forward with the concept series of Paper-II English Literature. But before we directly jump into like what do we have in for the video, I have an important announcement to make. We are going to start with the new batch of Paper-II English Literature, where we are going to, delve deep into these very particular concepts in detail, particularly in the class course. Apart from that, we are also going to start from 10th of July with Paper-II Political Science as well as Paper-I, which is Teaching and Research Aptitude, which all comprise under or which all come under the UGC NET paradigm. Right? So these are certain things which I all wanted to tell you, but other things like you want to know more details about these very things, you can click on the link which is provided in the description below. So let's just see. The writer we are going to cover in today's Paper-II English Literature, the poet that we are going to talk about is none other than Nissim Ezekiel, right? So first of all, as always, I have an image of him right in front of all of us, and let's just see that when he was born, where he was born, what kind of themes can we particularly see in his poetry, what's his writing style. If there are any questions which are asked from this particular writer, what are those, right? So he was born in the year 1924 in Mumbai, and he also passed away in the year 2004 in Mumbai as well. So this is one thing which I wanted you all to know, right? For the biographical details are really important at times, because just to make the questions complex for students, the examiner can ask such things. Right? So, born on December 16, 1924 in Mumbai, India, and he was raised in a Jewish family. So, you will see that there are certain traits of him being from a Jewish family. You will see that in his writing style, and he has experienced a multicultural upbringing, because he was living in Mumbai, right, and he was a Jew. So basically an amalgamation of different cultures that he was interacting with, the culture that he was brought up in, basically, that was having an impact on his writing his entire life, right, if we talk about it. He completed his education at Wilson College and later pursued a master's degree in literature from Birkbeck College, London. So he was, just like other writers who have been to London to get their master's degree as well, he was also one of those writers. So we see that one thing which is prominent here is that they can ask this very particular thing in the examination, because the examiners are usually asking the descent of a particular writer. So he was from a Jewish descent and multicultural upbringing. We see the amalgam of different things, different cultures in his poetry, and we are going to read certain poems of his to understand that very particular thing about the environment that we all are also brought up in. Literary career. He co-founded the literary journal Quest. This has been a question which has been asked in the NET examination, right? And of course, you all should be knowing, if any writer particularly is associated with founding, with finding any kind of, let's just say magazine, a journal, etc., or a school per se, you all should be noting it down wherever you are making your notes. Was a part of the influential Bombay group of poets in the 1950s, because he was belonging from what? Mumbai only. So there was a group of poets which was formed around 1950s. He was involved, right? He was a part of that particular group as well. His poetry broke new ground. He was talking about certain themes which were not, directly talked about in the Indian society, addressing universal themes while capturing the nuances of Indian life and culture. This particular thing can be seen really prominently in Ezekiel's works. When we are going to read The Night of the Scorpion, we are going to read Enterprise, you will see that how the Indian life, the Indian culture, and the minute details are very well expressed in the poetry of his. His poetry often explores the themes of identity, because, of course, when I talk about identity, and any writer who has been brought up in a multicultural environment, let's just take an example that you are born in India, you are brought up till 18 years of age in India, and then you move to some other country. You try to, get involved or get indulged or get used to their ways of living basically. You will try to have you will have this very particular question in your mind. Do I belong? Do I still belong to the Indian way of living, or do I belong to this particular country's way of living where I have just shifted? So the identity crisis and the question of identity, like where do I belong, that can be seen in his poetry. Alienation. What do we really mean by alienation? When you are alienated from something. From capitalism only, I can give you an example here, that let's just say that you are a labor. You have created a bottle of shampoo. But when in the market that particular bottle goes, you are alienated from the product. In what sense? You do not know, because your name is not on the brand. It is the brand which is there. So you are alienated from the product even if you belong there, even if you have made it. Same is the case when it comes to the cultural part. You feel alienated from the culture. That thing can be seen. The complexities of human relationships which are there, the themes of superstition, so on and so forth, that can be seen. Challenges faced by individuals in a rapidly changing post-colonial society. That can also be seen because he is a post-colonial, poet as well after the British. His works are characterized by a blend of humor, wit, and profound introspection. That you as a person should have that much capability of introspect things. To introspect things, right? And of course, whenever we'll read his poetry, we'll see the use of wit and humor. How? Through the use of sarcasm, wit, humor, he is trying to, portray something in the poetry. So his notable works, some of them are here, right? The Unfinished Man, which was published in the year 1960, is a collection that examines the contradictions and struggles of the modern Indian experience. So there might be a question which is related to the themes or maybe a small summary. So if you can do that thing on your own, that will be really beneficial. That of course we are dealing with him as a poet, but there are certain other things which you all need to put an effort to, right? The exact name, 1965, themes of love, loss, and personal growth. How a person grows from someone who's sad to a person who eventually, is mature enough. Hymns in Darkness, 1976, as the name also suggests, it's a hymn, right? Or it is a collection of hymns, reflects on spiritual and existential concerns, the alienation, the, loneliness that a person feels when the identity crisis peeps in, and of course, when the existential crisis also come, right? So that is the theme in Hymns in Darkness. Collected Poems, 1989. And in 1969, in the writer's workshop, he published his 3 plays which have been asked as a question in the NET examination for the odd one out thing. He wrote 3 plays which were published together. What was the name of those 3 plays? Nalini, Marriage Poem, and The Sleepwalkers. So, of course, this point I will never want you all to miss. So, 3 plays he has written. He played a crucial role in establishing Indian English poetry as a legitimate and distinctive literary genre because of the fact that after the British had gone, this thing of particularly the poetry as a genre to express your own self, like we have seen in Kamala Das's poetry, that how she is a confessional poet. She is just confessing her feelings. She is just confessing the life stories and the relationships that she has been through. Correct? So same was the case with him as well. Why are we calling the Indian English poetry as a legitimate and distinctive literary genre? Because there has been, even today there is a debate. What do we know? That it is Anglo-Indian poetry or Indian English poetry, so on and so forth. So the themes which were underlying or which we see, which are underlying in his poetry, they are Indian in nature, but the language that he is using to express those very particular things is the medium, basically, is English. So hence, Indian English, and he is trying to use these very particular things to reach out to the audience who is even abroad, correct? His poetry showcased the richness and diversity of Indian culture. Already told you, a voice to the Indian experience in the English language, which is why we say that he produced that very thing. He let the Indian English poetry to come out as a genre, as a particular genre. And we even have, if we read certain things, Indian English, Indian writing in English, where we have dramas, poetry, novels, plays, so on and so forth. Those very things, pehle, they were not there particularly. But after him, or after the British left, this thing has been established as a genre. His contributions continue to inspire and influence generations of writers to write about the Indian themes which are there, to write about Indian themes with a touch of existential crisis, with a touch of identity, alienation, love, loss, whatever themes that he has covered in his poetry. So he has received certain awards. We are going to see that. The Sahitya Akademi Award for his collection Latter Day Psalms in 1983. So he received the Sahitya Akademi Award, and I have mentioned this particular thing as well, that whenever you are there, you are preparing a writer, Sahitya Akademi, Booker, right? And if that writer has been a poet laureate, so on and so forth, there are other things, Pulitzer Prizes, right? These things should be on your tips. Coming back in 1988, he was honored with Padma Shri, which is one of the highest civilian awards in India for his contributions to literature. And there have been other writers as well, like Khushwant Singh, etc., who have been awarded with certain same awards, correct? Celebrated both nationally and internationally for his contribution. His poetry, he was an influential editor, critic, and mentor to aspiring poets. And we see that he was a person, as we have seen in the previous slide, he co-founded the magazine titled Quest, correct? Championed the cause of Indian literature, hence established it as a genre. Contributions extended to teaching and holding academic positions, sharing his knowledge and passion for literature. So he has taught as well. First poem that we are going to deal with in today's lecture, in today's YouTube video, is Night of the Scorpion, which was published in this very collection. The exact name, 1965. It is one of his most famous poems and widely studied poems. And I'm sure some of you in your bachelor's, if you would have had, bachelor's in English honors, you would have read this particular poem. It narrates an incident from his childhood and how the people around him were dealing with this very particular incident, and explores the theme of superstition, which is even in today's time really prominent in India, right? Kali billi ne rasta kaat diya, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, other things, so on and so forth. So the superstition can be seen, the communal unity, that even if the superstitions are there, there is a particular unity, the power of self-sacrifice. Right? So we are going to read it. I'll just increase the size a little bit for you all. I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Driven him, driven whom? Driven the scorpion. कि वो एक बोरी के नीचे, a sack of rice, उसके नीचे जाके चला गया. Parting with his poison flash of diabolic tail in the dark room, he risked the rain again. कि वो निकल आया. It just came out of that sack of rice, and of course, the tail, you would have seen a scorpion, of course. The tail that it was having, it had a flash, right? So on the wall, the flash of that diabolic tail could be seen. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. So it has been known as, it has been called as the evil one, right? And this is the theme of communal unity that we have seen particularly. Correct? There have been a lot of villagers, peasants who came to the rescue of her, and they were chanting the name of God with candles and with lanterns, throwing giant scorpion shadows on the mud-baked walls. Gaon mein diwarein dekhi hongi, right? They searched for him. So they were searching for him like this, right? He was not found. They clicked their tongues. What do we mean by clicking their tongues? ऐसे करना, right? They clicked their tongues with every movement that the scorpion made. His poison moved in mother's blood, they said. So this is the first instance of what? Superstition. It is said that when you are bitten by a scorpion, जैसे जैसे it keeps on moving, the poison keeps on, getting into your body properly, like entire body. So उसको मार देना होता है, baby. That's a superstition which is there. May he sit still, they said, so that the poison cannot, reach out in the mother's body entirely. May the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight, they said. So they were saying that ये आपके पापों के कर्मों की सजा है, right? The sins that you have committed in your past life, they are coming onto the surface, and that is why you have been bitten by a scorpion. Such a silly thing to say, though. May your suffering decrease, the misfortunes of your next birth, they said. That the next birth that you're going to see, have, may your sufferings decrease because of the fact that, yes, you are getting what you have already done in your past, the sins. You are getting the result, the consequences of your sins. May the sum of all evil balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good become diminished by your pain. So even if you are in pain, may those very things get released, right? Because you are suffering. May the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition, they said. And they sat around on the floor with my mother at the center. The peace of understanding on each face. More candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects. And the endless rain which was pouring down. My mother twisted through and through that she was suffering, to wo kara rahi thi. Groaning on a mat. So karana is groaning. So she was suffering and she was groaning on a mat because she had been poisoned and bitten by a scorpion. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing. So my father had been a person who's really doubtful, but he holds some kind of logic in his mind. He was also trying every curse and blessing. Powder, mixture, herb and hybrid. So any kind of mixture he was also trying which could bring down, or which could not have let the poison have the effect on the mother's body. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and put a match to it. क्योंकि toe पे कट करा था. I watched the flame feeding on my mother because the toe was burning and paraffin was put, so of course वो catch करेगा, right? So after the paraffin was put, my father lit a match and of course वहाँ पे toe को आग लगा दी, and the mother was there, right? The flame feeding on my mother. Correct? So this is the poem. Even if we see that there is some kind of logic in the sense, even if some kind of, but his father was also being superstitious because he was also trying every curse and blessing as well. Correct? So this is the first poem that we were supposed to do, and from here we see the themes of superstition. And yes, of course, the theme of superstition not in one sense, but many senses, that you would have committed sins in your past. Correct? We had seen that how in the name of God you are going to, be saved, of course. Correct? And with every movement the scorpion made, a move, the poison will get increased. Next is The Patriot in the year 1977. It is a satirical poem. So we see the humor that we were talking about, which is seen in his writing style. The wit and humor can be seen here as well in this poem. Critiques the blind patriotism that people have and the political hypocrisy that comes along with that. Again, uses humor and irony to expose the gap between patriotic rhetoric and the reality of the political corruption which is there. So we are going to read it, and then we are going to understand that where is he coming from and where is he using the where is he using the wit and humor. I'm standing for peace and non-violence. Why world is fighting? Why all people of the world are not following Mahatma Gandhi? I'm simply not understanding. Ancient Indian wisdom, it is 100% correct. I should say even 200% correct. But modern generation is neglecting too much, going for fashion and foreign things. Other day I'm reading in a newspaper, every day I'm reading Times of India to improve my English language. So the colonial times we are talking about in here, the colonial, stance that still, even if I am reading it, I am just reading it to improvise my English language. How one Gonda fellow threw stone at Indira Behan. Must be the student of unrest fellow, I'm thinking. Friends, Romans, countrymen, I'm saying to myself, lend me the ears. Everything is coming. Regeneration, remuneration, contraception. Be patient, brothers and sisters. You want one glass lassi? Very good for digestion. With little salt, lovely drink, better than wine. Not that I'm ever tasting the wine, so here he is even telling that better than wine, but I am not going to taste it. So the sarcasm that we are going to talk about in here. I am a total teetotaler, right? Completely total. But I say wine is for the drunkards only, correct? What you think of prospects of the world peace? What do you think of that? Pakistan behaving like this, China behaving like that, right? It is making me really sad, I'm telling you. Really most harassing me. All men are brothers, no? This is the one thing which have been, preached time and again. Hindu, Sikh, Bhai, etc. Correct? So those very things. In India also, Gujaratis, Maharashtrians, Hindi walas, all brothers. All brothers, though some are having funny habits. Still you tolerate me. I tolerate you. The toleration of religion, he is, putting a sarcasm on. One day, Ram Rajya is surely coming. You're going. But you will visit again. Anytime, any day, I'm not believing in ceremony. Always I'm enjoying your company. So, of course, again, here he's talking about the corruption of minds, right? The political corruption. He's also talking about the hypocrisy that comes along with that, correct? Next we have Enterprise, 1960, published in the book The Unfinished Man. It is a reflective poem that contemplates the struggles and aspirations of an individual in a changing society. That how, with the change which comes in a societal way, in a societal sphere, how the individual struggles with those particular changes, because changes are inevitable, but how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to deal with the struggles? So the struggles of the individual have been talked about here. Explores the themes of ambition, disillusionment, and the tension between personal desires that this is what I want to do, but these are the expectations from the society. I want to pursue masters, in English, but the society expects me to become an engineer. So the constant conflict and the struggle which is between an individual and the societal expectations, correct? So we are going to read it here. It started as a pilgrimage, exalting minds and making all the burdens light. The second stage explored but did not test the call. The sun beat down to match our rage. We stood it very well. I saw it, observed and put down copious notes on things the peasants sold and bought, the way of serpents and of goats. 3 cities where a sage had taught, but when the differences arose on how to cross a desert patch, we lost a friend whose stylish prose was quite the best of all our batch. A shadow falls on us and grows. Another phase was reached when we were twice attacked and lost our way. We lost our way, that what are we going to do with our lives? What do I really want and what does the society really expect of me? And because of the societal expectations, they lost a friend who was having, writing something very nicely, but they lost it Not literally that he did not die, but of course he was also trying to meet the expectations of the society of being a good boy, a good man, having a good source of income. So he left his individuality there and he tried to meet the societal expectations which were there. A section claimed its liberty to leave the group. I tried to pray. Our leader said he smelt the sea. So this is some excerpt from the poem, which is Enterprise, correct? So we see it here. Next is Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S., humorous poem. Time and again have been asked in the NET examination. In Match the Following even. Employs irony and wit to critique the inefficiency and absurdity of the administrative system and how it has peeped into the people who are living in India. Correct? So we're going to read it here as well. Friends, our dear sister is departing from foreign in 2-3 days, and we are meeting today to wish her bon voyage. You are all knowing, friends, what sweetness is in Miss Pushpa. I don't mean only external sweetness, but internal sweetness as well. Miss Pushpa is smiling and smiling even for no reason, but simply because she is feeling that she is going to move forward. Miss Pushpa is coming from very high family. Her father was a renowned advocate in Bulzar or Surat. I'm not remembering now which place. Surat. Ah, yes. Once only I stayed in Surat with family members of my uncle's very old friend. His wife was cooking nicely. That was a long time ago. Coming back to Miss Pushpa, she is the most popular lady with men also and ladies also. So, satire, the satire that we are talking about in here. Whenever I asked her to do anything, she was saying, just now only I will do it. That is showing good spirit. I am always appreciating the good spirit that she has. Miss Pushpa is never saying no. Whatever I or anybody is asking, she is always saying yes. And today, she is going to improve her prospect and we are wishing her bon voyage. Now I ask other speakers to speak, correct, on Miss Pushpa. So this is the poem Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S. Correct? Then we have, this has also been a question which has been asked in the NET examination, an area of darkness. And of course, there was a reply which Nissim Ezekiel gave to V.S. NAIPAUL. So first of all, this is NAIPAUL'S travelogue, an area of darkness, which was published in 1964, in which he portrayed Indians in a negative stance. So he wrote this in 1964, right? Portrait poor and filthy India. It caused grave offense in his motherland, which means India only, and of course in his motherland. And when things were there, things were getting a little out of hands, negative portrayal was there and hence it was banned. This book was banned. India was and remained in an area of darkness. This was what NAIPAUL was saying in his work, the portrayal of India in a negative stance. As I already told you that Indians are not good, so on and so forth. If you read this very particular travelogue, you will come to know. Coming back onto what did Ezekiel reply? Ezekiel wrote in 1984, NAIPAUL'S India and Mine, to draw a contrast between the negative which has been portrayed कि NAIPAUL ने इंडिया को negative stance में portray करा है, but my India is not like that. So comparison or a parallel drawn between the two things, NAIPAUL'S India and Mine. Reply to an area of darkness. Rejoinder, which is a reply only, NAIPAUL'S India and Mine, criticizing the writer for his description of the grossness and squalor of Indian life. And of course, Ezekiel replied with certain kind of zeal and love that he has for his own country. The routine ritualism, the lip service to high ideas, the petrified and distorted sense of cleanliness right? The grossness that he talked about, that India is not clean, so on and so forth, and 1,000 other things which Naipaul has written in his, travelogue, an area of darkness. And what area of darkness? Area kisko describe kara hai? India ko, correct? But here, Ezekiel beautifully replied in 1984 after 20 years. 1964 mein an area of darkness was published. After 20 years, Ezekiel got this very particular essay published. Next, I have questions for you. Poems by Nissim Ezekiel that make fun of Indians' use of English. The answer to this question is option A. That is Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S. and very Indian poem in Indian English. We are going to read the description because I have brought in here, right, that why are we seeing them as a fun, right, of the English language. First, this is a satirical poem, we've already read that narrates an incident where Miss Pushpa's colleagues have planned a farewell party for her, right, as she leaves India. And she was in such a pride that now she's leaving India, she's going to live in a foreign land. The narrator uses Babu English, right? We have read that very particular poem and we can see that with a mix of Hindustani dialect and manners which make the poem interesting to read. So this is one. So Babu English, of course, it is not a total English that we really talk about, and it is a mixture of Babu English and Hindustani dialect. Hence, of course, it is a fun way in which the English has been portrayed. Then we have very Indian poem in Indian English, highlights the various mistakes that Indian commits and their use of English by bringing the aspirations of a free India and also the attitudes of the two hostile neighbors it has. What hostile neighbors? China and Pakistan. So this could be another question which can be framed, that in Nissim Ezekiel's poem, very Indian poem in Indian English, what two hostile neighbors have been, talked about? So it's China and Pakistan. Correct? Next question. His first collection of poetry is titled. The answer to this question is, what is the answer? I will be giving you the answer right now. The answer is A Time to Change is Nissim Ezekiel's first collection of poetry. Correct? So I hope with this very particular YouTube video, the entire thing that we have done till today, it is clear, everything is clear about Nissim Ezekiel, and we have tried to cover it from the net perspective. I will bring forward certain other new videos for you all. Till then, you all keep on smiling, keep on studying. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.